Alright, welcome boys and girls. Today we're going to look at method overloading and method overriding. We're going to start with method overloading. As you can see in the animal.java file, we could have two constructors that are named the same way. In order for the compiler not to get confused and see which one you could call, you'll notice that this constructor takes in two strings and this constructor doesn't take in anything at all. So when you're calling the constructor for animal class, if you put in two strings in the parentheses when you're calling it, then you know it's going to call this constructor. If you don't put anything at all, it's going to call this constructor. Now, if they were exactly the same, the compiler wouldn't know which one to call, and that would cause issues. So, what you have to remember is an overloaded method will have different parameters. Okay? It could also have different return types. For instance, if there was another copy of set name, if it returned a string, that would be fine, but the parameter that's in between the parentheses here would have to be different if it's in the same class, because the compiler will get confused about which method to call. I will show you an example in a minute. Let's go over method overriding. Now we know in the animal class that we have two abstract methods that had to be implemented by the first concrete class. In our case, this was bird. Bird had to implement noise and eat because animal had it as abstract. And bird extends animal, which means bird is a animal. Okay, so we made print statements for each one. For the noise method, we made bird noise, and for the eat method, we made bird eating. Alright, so that's a way of overriding a method, but it's not the way I want you to understand it. The better way to explain it is actually looking by duck. And duck, you'll notice that we have the same methods again. It's exactly the same as it was in bird. See? Exact copy. However, this is an overridden method, meaning that when a duck object is made and you call the noise method, it will use this noise method as opposed to bird's noise method. If we did not override this method from bird, when you called the noise method from duck, you would actually have gotten the bird method for noise. And once again, we'll show an example of this. This is just a setup. So, it's the exact same signature, public void noise. Public void noise. See that? It's the exact same thing. Exact same parameters, same return type, everything. So this is an example of method overriding. So let's look at the test class. Go to the bottom here. And when you run this method, or this test class, sorry. Let's look at the overloaded methods. Alright. So, let's start off with bird. We entered information to get the name of the bird and the type. And we created a bird object passing in a parameter with two strings. Okay? And if you notice, when you pass in the parameter with two strings, your answer will get a yellow bird created and a bird name is Tweety. Alright? Because it gave it specifics on what it wanted. Alright, now up here a bird was also created as well, called gen animal got new bird. But it didn't do anything. It didn't pass in any strings or anything. It just called a regular constructor. And when you had it printed, a generic animal was created. I am a generic bird, and the name was null when you tried to call the name because it didn't make anything. Alright, let's look at the bird constructors. When you called the generic bird, it just says I'm a generic bird, which was printed here. But, I'm sorry, down here. It was printed here. I'm a generic bird. But when you called a specific bird with 2 strings, it created a bird. It says yellow bird created. Yellow bird created. So you can see it called different constructors when making a bird object. This is a bird object, and this is a bird object. But it did 2 different things because it knew which bird constructor to call. One was generic, and one was specific. Alright, so let's look at the example of the overriding method. Now, bird eat and bird noise, and duck eat and duck noise. If you look at the bottom, you'll see that the bird eat called bird eating, and bird one noise called bird noise. And when you called the eat method for duck, it was duck eating, and the duck noise was quack. See that? Because it knew what specific ones to call because the method was overridden. Now, duck extends bird means that duck is a bird, so it had that method in there, but we override it to say something more specific to duck. Let's comment this out and see what happens if we didn't even have that in there. And save, back to test, and run it again. Let's go ahead and fill in the blanks here for this. Okay, you'll notice that even though we hit duck.eat and duck.noise, it still used its parent class bird, noise, and eat because we didn't have the methods overridden in the duck class. It used its parent's bird, eat, and noise methods because it inherited it when it extended bird. Alright, so we could have had it this way if this was something useful to us, but we actually on the farm have specific noises and eating methods for each animal, so therefore when we override them they do something more specific. This was a short example of how method overloading and method overriding works. Hope this was useful, and I'll see you in the next video.